Good evening. How is everyone? Welcome back to the pub. I have a rum and tonic again. Ah, Oh, it's so good. In case you missed the pub last week, rum and tonic is the most refreshing summer drink there is, at least in my experience. Specific rum, Mount Gay Eclipse, and it's just so good. And with half a lime, very important. Lime cut in 2/4 and squoze into it. And oh my god, it's so good. Hello, Usa. Josh is adulting. Josh is listening and occasionally chatting while doing house cleaning. I recently hired a house cleaner because I'm lazy as fuck. I hate house cleaning, especially since it seems so pointless. Not that it's not nice having a nice clean house, but especially with a long hair cat, it stays that way for about 2 days. So before you've got fuzzballs in the corner and stuff like that. So strangely enough, when I was away, when we didn't have pub, I don't know, whatever it is, 6 weeks ago now, I hired a cat sitter who coincidentally turned out lives in my street, lives 6 buildings down the street from me. I found her online. I was completely shocked. I almost felt like I was being stalked or something when we realized we got along, and I asked her where she lives, and she said the same suburb as me. And I said, "Oh, that's interesting. Where?" And she said the same street as me. And turns out she's just down the street. And she did a great job with the cat sitting. Fitz loved her. She was really, really nice and friendly. And she's a Russian immigrant. And Russian immigrants in Berlin, or in many places, do lots of different kinds of jobs, but cleaning ladies is a pretty common job. So I asked her if she knew any Russian friends who might do that, and she said she would do it. So she is now my cleaning lady. She is actually coming tomorrow. Hello, Ulsa. Hello, Brian of the Bell. Hello, Colton. Hello, Jerome. Hello, Rogue. Yeah, the crack today. I'm still a little stuck in Fallout 4, to be honest. It's a real rabbit hole. So I played some today. Not only, but Evie at her mother-in-law's. Have fun at your mother-in-law's. I hope it's fun. Like, mother-in-laws aren't inherently evil. It's just sort of a stereotype. I have only ever had one, and she was awesome. Hi, Daniel. Good to see you. Brian, I'd be happy to. I bet she would probably even be happy to take the trip, but it's a little expensive, slightly. But I bet they have Russian ladies where you live too. Nice Russian ladies named Polina. Maybe. I'm serious, guys. You should try this. Somebody on the fireside, I need to look up names. Mattia, that's right. It was Mattia. Listened to me last week, ordered a bottle of Mount Gay rum, and tried this. And Mattia agrees with me. I think Mattia always watches this on replay. So, Mattia, cheers. Enjoy your rum and tonic. Bex is here. Erin's here. Yeah, Josh, I don't I don't really do mixed drinks at all. I have I basically have scotch in the house and cognac, and I drink them straight, and I don't mix them with anything because they're good scotch and cognac. And I have I have Mount Gay Eclipse rum, specifically that one. Um, Rums like Captain Morgan are too sweet and too spicy and have too much of their own specific flavor. And the other end of the spectrum, like White Bacardi, is basically vodka and doesn't really have much of a specific flavor or sweetness. And Mount Gay is somewhere in the middle. Yeah, that's fine, Rogue. I mean, I'm not dissing Captain Morgan. I'm just saying for this particular drink, for the kind of taste that you want, or the taste that I am experiencing anyway, Captain Morgan would be way too sweet and sticky. Not for me. Tell Svetlana Paulina said hi. Brian? Morton, good evening. How's your week been, everyone? But specifically you, Morton. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you can do nice things with Captain Morgan, but Mount Gay is I think of rum as a spectrum. Right? Yeah, a spectrum from like Captain Morgan to White Bacardi. And Mount Gay is like right in the middle somewhere. Bumbu. I don't know Bumbu. I've never even heard of it. But a dark sipping rum, yeah, that would be more on the Captain Morgan end of the spectrum. Morton has just had 4 days off from the library and got the reading mood back. Yeah, I'm still being very slow with my reading and with my obviously with my channeling videos. I mean, not channeling spirits. I have been reading quite slow and having motivation problems with getting a video done. And playing lots of Fallout 4 really doesn't help. But I get a little obsessive about these things sometimes, and I'm in one of those phases. Sorry to hear it, Jerome. When you say lost a 20-year friendship, did someone die or did you have an irreparable disagreement? It sounds like maybe someone died. That is a real pity. I have been in that position not too long ago. In the worst way possible. A very good friend of mine in Australia, very close, committed suicide. Damn it. And she is sorely missed still. Yeah, rum and tonic. Actually, that's a good idea. I should try Mount Gay with a nice dry ginger ale at some point. Although I like the tonic, the contrast, because tonic is so bitter. And rum can be a bit sweet. So good afternoon, channeling spirits. Jerome. Yeah, I had one of those as well. a guy I was really close to and spent a lot of time with in Hamburg, and it still kind of confuses and um, surprises me, but he decided I was an asshole. And I can be an asshole, but he decided I was an asshole in a way that I know that I'm not, and refused to listen to me. And that was basically the end of us doing anything ever. We were so close. He was a songwriter, or is a songwriter. I guess he still is. I haven't seen him in a long time. He even wrote a song about me, which was bizarre. But yeah. Hello, Justin. Thornall has been obsessed with Hades 2. I kept looking at Hades. It was the shit for a while. And it looked like fun, but I never played it, so I haven't been into Hades 2. Yes, Colton, I keep thinking probably whenever I get around to doing a video again, probably the first one I do will either be a monthly wrap up kind of video, or a I've been binging Sun Eater video. Yeah. Yeah, everyone's very sorry to hear that, Jerome. It really sucks. I can totally relate. This other friend of mine and I, although we were always very different, I always thought we were quite close, and we certainly spent a lot of time together very regularly. And it kind of took me by surprise and came out of nowhere that he suddenly decided I was evil or something. Hello, Shad. Hello, Kat. Blasphemous game series. I don't know Blasphemous. Huh. It's not that often I hear about a game that I've never heard of. Or maybe I just have a garbage memory. Still reading Demon in White. Yeah, Demon in White is, I think I'm I don't know, sort of 3/4 of the way through the last available book. So it's 6 book plus 3 novellas in between that I've read. And thinking back on it, I'd say Demon in White was probably my favorite of all of them. That's very kind of you to say, Josh. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a really weird experience. Cujo. Wow, there's a blast from the past. One of those. I don't know if I've actually ever seen a Stephen King movie other than the ones that people don't think of as Stephen King movies, like Shawshank and Stand By Me. I mean, obviously, if you know Stephen King, you know those are Stephen King movies, but they don't feel as Stephen King movie-ish as Pet Sematary and Carrie and Cujo. But I remember, I mean, a lot of the movie adaptations of his books have been pretty awful, from what I've heard. Like I said, I don't think I've seen that many, and I think Cujo was one of them. Yeah. Okay, I'm not doing quite as bad as Bex. 2 chapters in 2 months is a bit slower than I am reading. I hope it improves for you, Bex. Maybe you just need to put it down and try something else. Maybe a different genre, or something very short, or something funny, or whatever. Or knowing what you're going through, maybe it's It's just a time where it's really hard to focus on reading, which I think is very understandable. Blasphemous is a Dark Souls inspired Metroidvania like. Okay. Um I don't really do the Dark Souls thing because I don't have 14-year-old reflexes anymore. And I've the only real Dark Souls I played Bloodborne ages ago when I got my first console and sucked really bad at it and couldn't get past sort of medium bosses and gave up until Elden Ring. And Elden Ring I thought was amazing, and it was well designed that you could actually go around bosses, not just suffer for hours and hours and hours. Langoliers was the worst Stephen King movie. Well, it's so bad that I've never heard of it. I didn't know that that was even a Stephen King novel, let alone movie. Finished Holly today. Is that a Stephen King? I don't remember hearing about it. Yeah. FromSoft Bloodborne, I probably got through 10% of it, 20% maybe. I really liked the visual design and the character design, the architecture, the monsters. Like visually, it was quite stunning. Story wise, I know they're known for making their stories extremely obscure, and that was difficult because I love a good story. It was also felt, at least at the beginning, it felt very linear, which I also kind of hate these days. I know it used to be the standard back in the day that everything was pretty linear. You were basically walking through a tunnel. But yeah, I didn't get through Bloodborne, but Elden Ring was just amazing, like visually amazing, very open world feeling. You could explore all over the place. Same kind of just stunning visual aesthetic, but they redesigned it. A lot of hardcore FromSoft fans were actually upset because it was easy enough that people who don't have 14-year-old reflexes could play it. People who are not obsessive compulsive and willing to try the same boss 250 times before beating it, like me, those people could actually play it. And the real hardcore FromSoft people were kind of pissed off. And I don't care. It was a cool game. Caroline, good evening. Good to see you again. Aaron King wrote Holly. Okay. A character who first appeared in Mr. Mercedes. See, I don't know Stephen King that well. I'm a fake fan. Like, I'm a huge fan of The Dark Tower. I've read some of the Dark Tower novels 3 times, and I just loved The Dark Tower. If you notice in my videos, in the top left corner, there is a huge old sort of Western revolver. And I got that because I love the Dark Tower so much. And I saw that gun. It's not an actual gun. It's a gun replica. It does not fire. I saw that and I thought that actually looks like a gun that like Roland's guns. So I read the Dark Tower and I read The Stand. I have it on my shelf. Haven't read it. I've got Salem's Lot on my shelf and I haven't read it. And because of the Dark Tower crossovers, I think Salem's Lot I definitely want to read. Stand also, there's some crossover. It's interesting. I've heard Insomnia is also a good one to read for Dark Tower crossover. I know that the whole idea of the Dark Tower is that it crosses over with almost everything, but the ones that there's real significant crossover seem to be Salem's Lot, The Stand, and Insomnia. So . Foul Tarnished, Searing for the Elden Ring. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It was a cool game. I remember the first time I came around a corner, or actually it's right at the beginning of the game. I think you come out of a door and you look across the landscape and there's this huge golden tree. It's like miles high. This huge golden tree over the world. And I saw that and just like while playing it was just sitting there dumbstruck for a bit. Um you were going to play Diablo 4 until it made you create a Battle.net account. Yeah, I mean, creating a Battle.net account isn't that big a deal. Once you've created it and turned off all of the bullshit notifications they want to send you, um, then you may as well just ignore that it exists. Not a big deal. I played Diablo 4 for a while, and it was a lot of fun. It's one of those. It's one of those games that gets quite repetitive, but like that's what it's about. It's a gear grinder, uh, and you just run around kind of doing very similar things to get better gear, so you can go to new places and kill bigger things. Um, Empire of the Vampire. I have that on my shelf because I listen to Mike, and Mike loves it or loved it and did a very cool interview with Jay Christoph. And Jay Christoph seemed like a guy I'd want to have a beer with. And it was really nice to hear the Australian accent and so on and so forth. And then since buying it, every opinion I hear of it makes it sound so edgelordy, I think I will hate it. So I've been a little afraid to start it. I'm curious. Yeah, I'm curious. Was it okay reading The Dark Tower with without any of the other books? I don't know because I can't compare. I mean, I certainly liked The Dark Tower, obviously, and I haven't read the other books. So yes, it was okay. No question. I think people make too big a deal. Maybe the really hardcore constant readers make too big a deal about the connections. Because it's a good book without figuring out every connection, or it's a good series. It's a weird series. It's, I would say, wholly unique. I don't know of anything like it. It's Western, it's science fiction, it's fantasy, it's contemporary fiction. It's really weird. And if you don't know all of the connections, then you don't know that you don't know all of the connections. So I don't think it suffered. I think it just adds another level of depth and interest. And, it's always fun to be reading a book and go, oh, I get that. I maybe am not necessarily meant to get that. And you don't have to get that, but I do get that, which is cool. That's fun. Yeah, it's inconsistent, Morton. Does Dark Tower get better after book one? I liked book one, but it does get better after that. But then it gets worse in some books, depending on who you ask, and gets better again, and so on. And I think you have to fundamentally like King's writing, and he does some things in the Dark Tower which are questionable and kind of meta, and which a lot of people hated. So I can't recommend The Dark Tower without hesitation or reservations. Yeah. Yes, The Stand is I do have the original version. And it was really good. It's very long. It's a doorstop, but it's very good. Yeah, and I would agree with Robin here. It's book one is pretty different from the rest of the series. But if you don't like book two, I'd drop it and let it go. Hearts in Atlantis has a Dark Tower tie-in. See, that's the thing, Josh. I think every second King book that you can name kind of ties into the Dark Tower somewhere. But it seemed like from everything I've heard and from what bits that are tie-ins I know, it seemed like the really important ones, which I do want to get to and read, are Salem's Lot and then The Stand and Insomnia. And then we'll see. Yeah, it's Mike's fault. Mike raves about Empire of the Umpire so much that, yeah. Yeah, fair enough, Jeroen. Personally, I would say don't let anything keep you from reading The Dark Tower. Like, it's if you like it as much as I like it, it's worth rereading. And I'm looking forward to eventually rereading The Dark Tower after I've read Salem's Lot and Insomnia. Yeah. Actually, Rogue, I saw Jay Kristoff's own review and I thought it was very funny. Because it's all images and gifs and it's cleverly written. I mean, it's certainly him patting himself on the back, but a lot of it seemed very much kind of jokey. Maybe it was a very Australian sense of humor thing that I enjoyed, but I saw that review and I thought, yeah, that's pretty funny actually. Um, yeah, exactly. Rabin is also read it without the other books, most of them, and yeah, I think you can. That's the big one, which, as far as I know, having not read the other books, there's nothing in the Dark Tower that I think ruins or spoils the Stand. I read the Stand, uh, and if you've read the Dark Tower and then you read the Stand, I don't think it's a problem. The main character, or one of the main characters from Salem's Lot, is in the Dark Tower and tells a lot of their story in the Dark Tower, so it spoils Salem's Lot. And if you care about that, which I don't at all, then that could be a problem. Yeah, exactly. That's what I've heard from the constant readers like Josh and Mike, that you don't need to read any of the other ones, but if you're gonna, Salem's Lot is the one, and between books 4 and 5. Daniel hasn't read Empire of the Umpire, read the first two Nevernight books. Christoph is very consciously doing what he's doing. Yeah, I don't necessarily. I mean, I don't have any criticisms at all because I haven't read Nevernight or Empire of the Umpire, and I don't know. The edgelord criticism, I trust, especially after seeing Mike's interview with Jay. I got the feeling he knows exactly what he's doing. Like, he's very aware of the genre and the tropes and all that sort of stuff. That doesn't mean that it's a book for me. You know, it might be objectively good, but edgelordy kinds of things, I just have a hard time getting into. Like, I'm a huge role-playing game fan, not computer, well, also video games, but like tabletop role-playing. I never played Vampire the Masquerade, which is one of the most popular role-playing games ever, because I was not a goth kid, you know? And all of the goth kids who were very dramatic and emotional and dyed their hair black, which I didn't need to because it already was black, and wore eyeliner and stuff, they were playing Vampire the Masquerade. And I wasn't interested in playing an edgelordy vampire. I was interested in playing a hero with a sword. So I was playing D&D and other things. Personally, Thornall, I would say don't worry about reading all the tie-ins because you can't read all the tie-ins unless you're Josh or Mike, because then you already have read all of the tie-ins. There are so many tie-ins. You could maybe only read 3, but it's still a stack of books as tall as your head. So I would say don't hold yourself back from reading The Dark Tower. It's amazing. I loved it. On writing is very good. You're right, Bex. I don't really write much, but I did read it, and I thought it was very. I know it's controversial with some people. Um, a number of writers I've heard have said that they don't really like his advice very much. That it could make someone who wants to write think that they have to do things the way Stephen King does them. But I guess all writing advice books probably do that. I don't know. Salem's Lot is Aaron's favorite. I have a weird relationship with Salem's Lot. It's Mother's Day, by the way. So all of you mothers out there, if you're a mother, you're probably not actually here right now because you got better things to do. But your mothers, and if you are coincidentally a mother, happy You Day. My mother was a big reader, and I'm eternally grateful for the fact that she was a big reader and that she encouraged me to read, because I would not be at all who I am without reading. And there was a bookshelf in the hallway right outside my bedroom door. And one day and it was all her books. And one day I was going through the books and I pulled Salem's Lot off the shelf because she was quite a King fan. I pulled Salem's Lot off the shelf and I went to her. I don't know. I was 9 or something. I went to her and I was like, "Is this a good book?" And she said, "Not for you." Because, she thought it was a bit too grown up for me and maybe would terrify me and give me nightmares, I guess. So for many, many years, I had this idea in my head that King was a nightmare author, basically, that he wrote horror only, and that his stuff was just scarier than I wanted to read. So I didn't read any King for a long time because I still had this thing in my head. You've read The Stand 3 times also? Wow. That's like almost as big as all of the Malazan Book of the Fallen. No, that's an exaggeration. It's almost as big as a third of Malazan Book of the Fallen, maybe 3 times The Stand. It's big and chunky. Yeah, I was also, obviously, I read it 2 years ago, Aaron, and I was also constantly thinking, I don't know if I want to be reading about this right now. For those who don't know, and it's not a spoiler, The Stand is post-apocalyptic, and the thing that kills the world or ruins the world is a pandemic. And reading that right after our pandemic was pretty funny. Okay, Daniel, that's good to know. Yeah, no, I thought that review was clever and funny. And if his edgelordiness is very tongue-in-cheek and not, I take myself very seriously edgelordiness, then maybe, yeah. Oh, Subterranean Press is printing Shadow of... Oh, no, I did see that. But anytime I see anything on Subpress, I always just think it's going to be crazy expensive. It's going to sell out in seconds. I've got no chance. I'm not even going to worry about it. I'm looking forward to the Malazan Broken Binding books. Woo. And Josh and I he got it, strangely enough, he got it a couple weeks before I did, but we just got the first book of The Lies of Loch Lamara, or the Gentleman's Bastard series, from Broken Binding in the subscription, and it's very pretty. It's got the same cover as the paperback, but it's got nice sprayed edges and some nice end paper art, and it's just a very pretty broken binding editions. So Ulrika doesn't know the word edgelord. Are you going by the name? I'm going to guess that you're maybe German, Ulrika. Edgelord is definitely not a German, a word that's made it over from English into Deutsch. And Colton has a non sequitur for us. The Vanished Birds is a masterpiece. I don't doubt it. I am looking forward to reading it eventually. Bex's ex-husband Lap's Vampire the Masquerade. That actually tells me a lot about him in very few words. That is certainly something I would never do. I couldn't take myself seriously enough to do that. But yeah. I've heard Daniel, I'm sure it's not Daniel. I've got a good friend in Germany named Daniel, so I'm used to pronouncing it that way. Eyes of the Dragon. I've heard that that's actually meant to be a not very good king book. Again, I know nothing. I haven't read much. Yeah. Yeah, Misery in Pet Cemetery. I've heard. Oh man. Sorry about that. I get this weird thing where straight down my side, over my ribs, I get a cramp in the muscle that stretches down my side. It's really weird, and the only thing I can do is pull it out like that. Revival is a great king read. Never heard of it. Josh read The Stand the second time during the pandemic. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it relativizes things, I guess, like because our pandemic compared to the pandemic in The Stand was not very serious. You know, it was still serious, but it didn't end the world, which the pandemic in The Stand pretty much did. No, Thornall. Edgelord does not mean cool. Quite the opposite. To me, anyway. I think it's a slangy word, so it's probably a very personal thing. Edgelord means somebody who is. If you call someone an edgelord, it's because they are going out of their way to act as cool as they can and taking themselves very seriously while doing it. And usually it has something sort of dark, like goths. Back in my day in high school, we had the goths who were all taking themselves very seriously. They were all very emotional. They always wore black. A lot of them wore black eyeliner, etc. And edgelord means much more like taking yourself way too seriously kind of thing. Love that series. I missed which one we're talking about there. But yeah. Good evening, Chadia. Good to see you. Aha, so Daniel is okay. But yeah, it's just a natural thing. I had the hardest time when I started getting into BookTube and I started becoming friends with Joanna because her name is spelled almost exactly like my ex-girlfriend who is Danish. And in Danish, her name was pronounced Johanna. Like a Y at the beginning and then a very sort of shortened, softened Hannah. Johanna. And I got so used to pronouncing that name that way that when I met Joanna, whose H is silent, damn her, I kept calling her Johanna just out of reflex. also has played Vampire the Masquerade. Yeah, no, I'm sure it can be fun. Like the idea of being a super powerful vampire person with all sorts of intriguey things going on. It sounds interesting. I think I also have a different like I've never really understood, maybe because I read Dracula at a young age, I've never really understood the sexy vampire thing. And it seems to have become a very mainstream kind of attitude towards vampires. As far as I'm concerned, vampires are horrible, horrible, terrifying monsters who consider us food. There is nothing sexy about that. That doesn't interest me at all. Like, and playing one feels to me just like you are inherently playing the worst of the bad guys. I mean, they eat people. So, eh. Ulrika is Swedish and it's on the Swedish new words list. Okay. It's always funny how many English, especially slang words, make it into other languages. Um, wow. Oh, yeah. Rogue, Loch Lamora. Gentlemen Bastards is awesome. Now that I am, next month I'll have the second one, and I guess the third one the month after that. So I'm going to have a very nice Broken Binding edition of all three. And I might have to reread them because it's been a long time. And the one I remember most is the first one, Lies of Loch Lamora. I see Thornall. I have read Interview with the Vampire. It's been a while, and I know where the whole sexy vampire thing is coming from, and there's some of it in Dracula even. You know, like it's a pretty old book, but Dracula, sort of through his vampire-y mind powers, can kind of seduce ladies, even though he's a horrible, horrible monster. I get all of that. But even reading Interview with Vampire, I was like, this book is trying to convince me that vampires are sexy, but they are awful, awful monsters who eat people. I don't know. Blade, yeah, the Blade movies are fun. But I still look at vampires. I mean, Buffy, there were some good vampires in Buffy, and Blade himself is a good quote unquote vampire. But overall, vampires are just awful, awful monsters, and we should be terrified of them and not want to sleep with them. Yes, let's hear it for Gentlemen Bastards. Yeah, Thorn of Emberlane. I wasn't paying that close attention. Like I read all three of them a long time ago, and after a while, I was like, "Huh, I haven't really paid any attention. What is Scott Lynch doing these days?" And I looked him up, not like about his life. I've got cat hair all over my microphone. Not about his life or anything, but just like on Amazon. Is there another book? And Thorn of Emberlane was there, and it said, you know, coming out in 2-3 months, and I just put it on my pre-order and then ignored it. And then after like 6 months, I was like, didn't I put? And I went back and looked, and then it said the release date was in another year, and it still is. You know, it still like keeps pushing it off, pushing it off, pushing it off. Was Angel and Edgelord? I couldn't really call anybody in Buffy an edgelord because Buffy was at least partially comedy, right? And it was very aware of what it was doing, and it was playing into the tropes, and it wasn't taking itself super, super seriously. And to me, like edgelording, you have to be serious about it. You have to actually mean it, non-ironically, non-humorously. Yeah. Yeah, the whole sparkly vampire. Someone explained to me that vampires sparkle in a series I've never read, and I was like, "Why? like what why would they sparkle? Um, yeah, I don't it's I don't get it. Um, yeah, Angel was a mess. Exactly. Um, yeah, see, exactly. There were people who took Buffy too seriously because Buffy was a joke. The whole thing is joke after joke after joke, and it is very funny. And the people who took Buffy really seriously, despite the fact that it was all intended to be humorous, they were edgelords. Yes, good catch, Danya. Um, yes, Robin, I canceled the pre-order. I don't know, year and a half, maybe 2 years ago now. Um, I was just like, I not parking money for multiple years at Amazon. Uh, Being Human, I have heard about, and it sounds interesting. And also there are some interesting there is some interesting vampire media for sure. Let the Right One In. I've also heard book and movie. I've heard are meant to be pretty interesting. Um, yeah, it might be that it just automatically got refunded, but yeah. So we've been chatting a lot, which is great, but why don't we read a bit as well? How about a um, Splint, as the Germans say? No, they don't. They don't say that. Um, yeah, no, I mean, I know where the sparkle thing is from. I know it's Twilight. I was just like, but why? Who would come up with the idea that vampires sparkle? I don't. The writer thought it was lame that a monster could be defeated by by sunlight. Okay, I don't know the details of Twilight. I know it was a huge cultural phenomenon. I know that vampires sparkle. I know that it's basically a multi-century year old vampire chasing after teenage girls, which I think is disgusting because vampires are horrible, horrible monsters. Um, and horrible, horrible pedophile monsters on top of being horrible, horrible monsters just seems like going too far. Um, but they sparkle. One of the coolest vampires. Has anyone read The Preacher comic book? Not the TV show, which was not so great. It wasn't a great adaptation of the comic. The comic is hilarious and beautifully drawn and excellently written, and it's so much fun. And Cassidy is an Irish alcoholic vampire in Preacher, and it's such a good story, especially if you're at all interested in religion, specifically Christian cosmology, which doesn't sound that exciting, but it makes it exciting. Um, the basic idea is that there's a preacher, a Christian, like sort of Southern Texan preacher, who one day is given the word, the power of the word, by not God, by a supernatural being. Um, and the word basically means he can tell anyone to do something and they do it, whatever it is. And he becomes aware that God is no longer paying attention to his creation. And he goes on a quest to find him and call him to task for it. And it's really, really good. It's really, really good. Yeah, fans of the comic hate it. I mean, I just thought it wasn't that great a TV show, and I couldn't imagine watching it without having read the comic. I think I might have been a bit lost. Um, Preacher is Paul Atreides, the Christian version. People keep saying this is Paul Atreides, the something version. Preacher is Paul Atreides, the Christian version. No, I wouldn't really say that. Because he's literally going to find God himself, and God actually exists and is hiding from the world. Um, yeah, the Preacher TV show. Yeah, as a fan of the comic, I was dissatisfied. Let's put it that way. Um, yeah, Lost Boys. It is a pretty innocent kind of movie, but at least the vampires in that are meant to be taken as scary monsters. Like you're not meant to want to sleep with them. Definitely read Preacher. It's so good. It is one of my all-time favorite comics. It is really, really good. The characters in it, the humor in it, the art, and the writing. I just thought I'm kind of into theology, and it was really, really good. Anyway, I was going to start before I got back to blathering on like an idiot. I was going to start a reading sprint. So actually, let's read until 20 past because I wasted some time. Let me just edit that. Ah, damn it. So let's read until 20 past. Enjoy your reading. See you soon. Hello. How was your reading? What are you reading? I know I asked the same thing. Basically every pub. But you keep coming back, so must be okay. Disquiet Gods is weird. By the fact that I'm reading it slowly, nobody should get the idea that it's not good. It is definitely good. The reading slowly is it's partially just me and where my head's at the moment, but it's also partially maybe I overdid it because I read like 5 novels and 3 novellas in 4 weeks, sort of. I do that sometimes. I binge stuff. It's good. I'm just giving myself some time. Rogue didn't read a damn thing. What did you do instead, Rogue? Tyrion Lannister Space Adventures. That is a very good way to describe the Forkozigan saga. Forkozigan, I don't remember. I kind of binged those as well, but I think I read 5 of them, but they're all pretty small. I had a downtime period, I don't know, 5-6 years ago in summer, and I just went bang, 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 and every day I was reading Forkozigan and got pretty into it. They're very enjoyable. I like reading about a smart protagonist. Reading the Crimson Guard also. Yeah, no, I'm the more I talk with people about Malazan, the more I am looking forward to getting back to my reread. I am up to Reaper's Gale, and I keep looking at Reaper's Gale, and it is thicker than my spindly little computer person arms, which has been intimidating me, which is stupid because it's a reread. Like, I know how good they are, and I know I can get through a 1,200-page book, but hey, Francois, I don't think I've seen you here in a while. Welcome back to the pub. Corporation Wars Dissidents by Kim MacLeod. Kim MacLeod is a name I've heard of. The book is not. Rereading Piranesi, or as my Italian friend Alessandro says, Piranesi. That the hand is important. I don't know if you all saw a video. I think it was I didn't really do a review for Piranesi, but I did a monthly review where I talked about a year ago, I think, and I had my Italian friend Alessandro actually record himself saying Piranesi. Watching makes Caroline want to start Dead House Gates reread. Yeah. I miss Malazan. There is something about the depth of it, the detail, the characters, the everything of Malazan that when I'm not reading Malazan, I often find myself wanting to be reading Malazan. Dania is reading For the Killing of Kings by Howard Andrew Jones. Never heard of it. He's been getting buzz for his ongoing Sword and Sorcery series, Chronicles of Hanuvar, which I've also never heard of. Wow. You found book 2 for $1.25 in hardcover? Damn. We don't really have... This is a good and a bad thing. Germany has extremely regulated book pricing because books are considered a cultural product, and basically the government decided to protect them from capitalism in a way, so that someone like Amazon couldn't put a small corner bookshop out of business, which is awesome because we have a really, really cool small corner bookshop that sells only science fiction and fantasy and a little horror in English in one room and German in another room called Otherland. And they are really awesome. And they probably wouldn't be open anymore if Amazon in Germany could do what it does in America. So you can walk into any bookstore in Germany and a new book, like older books, they're allowed to discount and they're allowed to have sales up to a certain point, but not too much. I don't know the details of the regulations, but you can walk into any bookstore in Germany and buy a new book and it will cost the same, and it will cost the same on Amazon as well. Amazon competes. Well, it's not really competition. The only thing Amazon has going for it in Germany basically is convenience, because they are allowed to ship things for free or whatever. Jared just joined. Hello, Jared. Reading Embassy Town. Okay. Some China Mieville. I think I read Embassy Town a long time ago. I haven't read everything Mieville wrote. I read all the Baslag, I'm pretty sure, and I think I read a couple of others. And outside of Baslag, some of them were kind of hit or miss for me. But I like his writing a lot. I loved Perdido, and definitely cool. KJ Parker. KJ Parker is someone I've been meaning to get to. Alan's been raving about KJ Parker like forever, basically. And I read a few months ago, I had a short story break between chunky novels, and I read a whole bunch of different short stories. And one of them was by KJ Parker. I think it was the only thing, or the first thing, now only thing I've ever read by him. And it was an excellent short story. It was really, really good. Trying to remember what the story was called. If anyone's interested, I can get up and grab the book and have a look. I don't remember exactly. 55% of Ashes of Man. Ashes of Man is good, no question. Some epic shit happens. And I really liked Ashes of Man, but like I said earlier, I think Demon in White is still my number one of the series. Rogue is also missing Malazan. Yeah, there's something about it. It's Erickson's got a very unique style of writing, and it's a very unique world in a lot of ways. Oh my God. Thornall just got a news alert. There's a bear in the area. Where do you live, Thornall? Like in the middle of nowhere in Canada or something? If I got a bear alert where I live, something would be very, very wrong. That would be very, very strange. Dollar Tree. Yeah. We don't. I'm trying to think of anything like Dollar Tree. Like I lived in America a long time, or a fair bit. So I know what those dollar stores are. They don't really exist so much in Germany. Well, they do exist. They're just not very common, and there isn't like a big chain. And the ones I've seen, they never have books. Like the place you get books cheap is used. So Otherland, the awesome bookstore I mentioned earlier, they have a small used section as well, but it's mostly for some reason horror. So I haven't gotten much. Reading Forge of Darkness. See, this is one of the reasons that I'm impatient to get back to Malazan, because I'm still doing the Book of the Fallen reread, and the further I get in that, because I'm doing a reading order which puts the novels, the Erickson, the Esselmont novels, in between the Erikson Book of the Fallen novels kind of where they chronologically belong. So the further I read, I think after Reaper's Gale, I get to read. Is it Crimson Guard? I think it might be Return of the Crimson Guard. So I finally get to some of those if I continue. It's kind of like a reward for continuing. But Forge of Darkness and all of those I will be putting after everything else, basically. So a bit later. Deadhouse Gates coming up for Brian. Yeah, Deadhouse Gates. It's big. I always flop back and forth. I'm just looking at my shelf. Yeah, I think Memories of Ice and Bone Hunters would be my top in the first 5. But Deadhouse Gates and House of Chains are also both really, really classic, epic things. Thornall lives in Romania. Okay. I don't remember if I knew that. I probably should know that, but I have a crap memory. Okay, yeah, and there isn't much. I remember this impression when I first moved to Germany. I had a train trip. I arrived in Germany in Hamburg, which is quite in the north of Germany, and I had, for some reason, might have been work or something, I had to take a train down to Frankfurt, which is a few hours south. And I remember I was looking out the window the whole time, and I was just thinking, wow, this country looks weird, and I couldn't figure out exactly what it was, why it looked weird. And it looks weird because I come from America and Australia, where the whole country is really young, and the whole country is really big, both of them, that it's really easy to find a place that doesn't feel like people have done their thing with it already, especially in Australia. Like, you can drive a couple hours outside of the capital city, and other than there being a road there isn't much else. And that doesn't exist anywhere in Germany. Like, every square meter of Germany has been tended for hundreds, if not thousands of years already. And all of the hedges between fields are in straight lines, and the forest ends in a straight line because there are actually people whose job it is to take care of the forest and make sure it stays where it is, and all of that. And all of those things are totally alien to me. It's just so weird. And it still strikes me as weird. Like, everywhere I've ever been in all of Germany, there is evidence of humans. The landscape has been changed by humans. It's been tended by humans since the Middle Ages. It's crazy. Rogue is thinking about rereading. I assume you mean Malazan after Realm of the Eldlings. Yeah. Wertz's Wars of Light and Shadow is one of those series, like also Baker's work. I forget what the series is called. Second Apocalypse? Something like that. Wertz and Baker have both been on my list for ages, and I've been like, I'm not going to do those until I finish rereading Malazan Book of the Fallen, because it feels like a bit too much of similar things. They're just too damn big. Look who it is.
Howdy.
How you doing, Jared?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Not bad. You got your D&D shirt on today.
Got my D&D shirt on. That's right.
Cool.
Had my usual Sunday morning session.
Okay. Are you the DM or?
I am, yeah. Yep.
Looks like a
DM.
Yeah. Looks like a DM kind of shirt. What are you running? Are you running in the officially approved world, or have you got your own homebrew thing going? Or
no, I do the I only run the published stuff because I don't have time to write up my own.
Fair enough.
But yeah, we're doing a little descent into the hells right now.
Avernus.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah.
That is one I haven't read. For a while I had a D&D phase. I was running D&D again like 6 years ago. I got into 5th edition and I was like, it's actually pretty good.
It is. It's good. Yeah.
And I bought some of the published, same thing as you. I was just like, I want a good adventure I can just open up and run. And Avernus was one of the ones I didn't get. I got Tomb of Annihilation,
Right. Yep.
which I can't imagine running, but was actually really, really interesting to read.
Oh, you just read them.
I ran some stuff. Although what I ended up doing was I got into oh man, what's it called? The other kind of mainstream, but alternative, but official D&D world, where magic is more like technology.
Oh, the Eberron.
Eberron, yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I got really into Eberron. I thought it was a really interesting idea, and it was quite different than Forgotten Realms stuff, and it was quite different than the more mainstream D&D stuff.
Yeah.
A bit more alternative-y.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I like the idea, like, if magic was everywhere and you had all sorts of people who could use it, it made a lot of sense to me that it would basically be used like,
Oh, yeah.
and it would,
Continuous lights everywhere, and
yeah, and people making things that just help people live their lives because they could sell it, So you'd have a lot of magic all over the place instead of like magic still being something you have to go to a tower and find a wizard,
right. Or yeah, or make a deal with a demon or something.
Yeah, exactly. It like
Yeah.
I kind of liked the idea that like magic is everywhere and it has
Yeah.
changed the economy and the culture and everything.
Yeah. No, we've done pretty much everything. My group and I have been together for like 30 years, and we've done all the wizards, all the D&D stuff.
Right. Cool.
Yeah.
It's nice having
But a
a
lot of
regular group.
see a few Wars of Light and Shadow readers here.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
Are you still working on it?
Yeah, I'm on book 6 right now. Yeah.
Okay.
Peril's Gate. Yeah, it's really
past the middle.
past just right at the middle. Yeah, actually right at the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I really want to get to it, but I like I was just saying, I feel like there's only so many really chunky, long,
yeah, I get that.
kind of involved series, and I'm rereading Realm of the Eldlings and Malazan right now, so that's enough.
Yeah, I'm on my reread of Malazan right now. I'm on Dust of Dreams right now.
Oh wow.
And,
Okay.
yeah, so that's I'm actually enjoying the reread so much.
I'm curious to see how it is on reread because I think Dust of Dreams was probably my least favorite of all of them.
It might have been mine too, because the thing is, you only remember a lot of the bad stuff.
Yeah.
But I found on my reread that there's a lot of funny stuff in Dust of Dreams.
Yeah.
That you don't remember. And I'm like, wow, this is actually really entertaining.
Yeah.
And it wasn't as much of a downer as I remember the first time, because the first time I was like, oh, man.
It's heavy.
Yeah, it was heavy.
I also remember it being very heavy.
But I kind of focused on the Malazan humor, and there's actually a lot in Dust of Dreams that you forget about.
I bang on that drum as often as I can because people who haven't read Malazan think it's really complex and it's really hard and it's really philosophical and all of that, and it can be all of those things. But Erickson doesn't get nearly enough credit for his humor. Like he is an excellent humorous writer.
Yeah. No, I'm actually looking forward to getting back to. Somebody mentioned Forge of Darkness in here, and I'm looking forward to getting back to that eventually when I get through the main series and stuff.
Yeah, Chadia is reading it. Yeah, I really want to get to those so to speak, other novels outside of Book of the Fallen, because I read Book of the Fallen and nothing else, and then at some point I read the Bocalan and Corbel Broach
Yeah, those
novellas, which
talk
were
about
great.
hilarious.
Yeah, those are like totally absurd comedy.
Oh yeah,
And I read Knight of Knives. So I've read one Esselmont, but it's by all accounts the worst. It's not bad, but it's the first one he wrote, I think.
it's the one you have expectations going into, and they're subverted because you're not used to his style yet,
Yeah,
and then I've reread that too, and it's actually a lot better on a reread as well, and
yeah.
so I'm doing like you're doing. I'm doing it all in publishing order. Um,
I'm not doing it in publishing order. I thought about this. I thought about this a long time, and there's a reading order which is on the wiki. It's called the Ultimate Reading Order, and it was the result of a very long discussion on the Malazan Reddit by a lot of people who've read everything multiple times. And it's not publishing order; it's world chronological order.
oh, okay,
So you put Esselmont books where they belong in the chronology in between Book of the Fallen books.
right.
So Knight of Knives after the second book, I think, and then I forget it. I think Return of the Crimson Guard is the next one coming up, which is right after Reaper's Gale, and so on. And put them in so the chronology makes sense. And then Forge of Darkness and all of that you can read anytime you want because they're like
Yeah, it's
100,000-year prequels,
yeah,
so they don't really
yeah,
matter exactly where they are. Danielle started Wars of Light and Shadow and didn't like it. Okay.
yeah.
Um, her writing style's like Stephen Donaldson on steroids. Okay, I can see that. I
Well,
can see that.
she's a huge fan of Donaldson.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah,
makes sense, and
yeah,
yeah, I could see that. I can definitely see that.
yeah.
It's not for everybody, but it is spectacular writing. I mean,
I
it
was
is.
I picked up because everybody like I had FOMO. Everybody had been talking about Jenny, and I was like, I don't want to start another massive series at the moment, but I want to know what her writing's about. And I picked up To Ride Hell's Chasm,
Mhm.
and I'm really conflicted on that book. The first half I thought was great,
Mhm.
but once they start actually writing Hell's Chasm, which is sort of in the middle of the book, the second half of the book struck me as super repetitive and very predictable. Like there were certain things set up that where the setup seemed really obvious to me what the conclusion of it was going to be, and I kind of struggled through the second half of the book. And I haven't heard anybody else say that, which makes me think maybe it was just me, my mood at the time. I don't know.
Yeah, it's I haven't read that one yet. I did read another standalone, The Master of Whitestorm,
Okay.
um, and that was pretty good. That was actually a little bit more sword and sorcery than some of the other the other epic type of stuff, but
Okay.
it was
All
pretty
right.
good.
All right. Yeah, Danya. Rereads,
Yeah,
especially Malazan, because there is so much going
yeah,
on.
yeah,
There are so many details and things about the world you don't understand the first time you read it, and you learn more and more. And then knowing what you know after 10 books, reading them again is a very different experience. Um, a lot of people, I think people wrongly say that you have to reread Malazan or you only get Malazan after you reread it. I don't think that's the case at all. You
no,
can read it once and it's awesome.
sure.
But there is definitely a certain richness to it because you've got the basics already. You understand how magic works and what the world's about and a lot of the history and that kind of thing. And you start
Yeah,
picking up on things that you didn't the first time.
yeah. You don't
How
have to
many
worry about figuring stuff out the second time around.
Brian is too old to Google, apparently. So I'll tell you, Brian, my copy, the hardback, is 690 pages. Um, which is it's the UK edition. So depending on typesetting and everything, it might be a bit different in America, but it's about that long. I have not read Erickson's comedic sci-fi.
No, I have not either. Yeah,
Um,
I read Rejoice, his sci-fi
Knife to
sci-fi.
the Heart. Yeah,
Yeah, that was outstanding. But I have not read the what are they called? The
it's kind of his Star Trek parody
Star Trek
series,
parody.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
It's
forget what they're called as
I
well.
need
I
to get
haven't.
to those someday. Yeah.
I'm honestly, I'm not that interested. Maybe just because I know I've got so much Malazan that I want to read,
Mm.
and it's going to be so long until I'm finished with that. I'm like, yeah, maybe one day I'll read some of his sci-fi, but
Willful
to me,
Child. That's the name of it. Yeah,
Wilford Child, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
To me, he's the Malazan guy, and I'm sure that's putting him in a box. But his sci-fi stuff, I don't know. Um, yeah, don't get me wrong, Rogue. I also like Knives.
Yeah.
Just I've heard from people who've read more Esselmont that it was his first Malazan novel, and that it's the worst one. And it's always bad. It's always bad when you say worst because people think that means bad. And like saying the worst Malazan novel is like saying so much better than most fantasy. Even the worst Malazan novel is so much better than a lot of fantasy I've read.
Mhm.
So, how many novels in the whole Malazan universe? I think it's around 26. Like
Yeah,
there's a Malazan Book of the Fallen,
up
which is
there.
10. And it's 26 currently. I think it's going to be 28 or 9 when the current trilogies that Erickson is working on are finished. I think that makes it 28 or 29, something like that. So it's a few.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's a few.
it's gonna take a little while. Um, which Stephen Donaldson, Thomas Covenant Donaldson, or Morton Sneed Donaldson? Yeah, I mean he
He
evolved.
he definitely has a lot of. He can do what he wants. He's a outstanding writer as well. So he
Absolutely.
yeah,
I want to reread. I want to reread Covenant.
yeah.
Um,
I
it's
love
it's
the Gap Cycle. His sci-fi series is
right.
just stunning. It's outstanding. Even his most recent trilogy was a lot of fun. So it's good stuff.
Right. Oh, okay. Ida also didn't like to ride Hell's Chasm that much, but loves Wars of
But
Light and
Love's
Shadow.
Wars. Oh,
Yeah.
interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. No, it was a weird feeling because, like, literally the first half of the book, I was like, "Oh wow, this is really good,"
Yeah. That's why
and
I'm always
then
a little bit wary about people saying, if you want to check out her style, try this standalone. And I'm like, well, that's not really the same as actually trying the series, you know? I'm always a little bit wary of when people say that.
yeah, but it gives you. I mean, if I read a standalone by her and hated it, I think there's very little chance that I would love her series. You know.
Yeah,
Whereas if I read a
I guess so.
standalone,
Yeah.
like reading To Ride Hell's Chasm did not put me off reading Wars, Light, and Shadow. I was just it was really really weird. Like I said, the first half of the book it would have been an awesome 300-page book, but then the second half I was like, it feels like everything in this book has changed, and I liked the first half a lot more. You
Mm.
know, yeah, um, yeah, exactly. That was the thing. In the middle of the book, it becomes all about two characters,
Oh, okay.
which isn't necessarily a problem, but what is going on with those two characters and what is going to happen at the end with those two characters was obvious to me in the middle of the book. And then I just felt like there are no surprises. And they're fleeing. And it just felt like a series of stop and talk. The things chasing them catch up with them. There's a fight. Run, run, run. Or ride, ride, ride. Stop and talk. Something catches up with them. There's a fight. Like that happened like 4 or 5 times. And
Mm.
that was the second half of the book for me. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. The very end, I also liked Francois. Um,
Yeah.
but
She has great endings on
right,
just about every book in the Wars of Legend series. Uh, the endings are really, really uh, like she lands them. Boom.
right, okay. Chodia, yeah, that's correct. The Beauclain and
Oh,
Corporal
yeah.
Broach novellas. There are 6 of those, I think, or 5 or something. I wasn't counting those. Um, Not that they don't count, but they are much smaller. So, does everyone think Memories of Ice is better than Deadhouse Gates?
Oh, that's tough.
I'd probably say yes myself.
Yeah, it's hard for
I
me. It's like choosing between my children.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, like other than like if we leave out the epic ending, which I think is an epic book because it is the epic ending, like Crippled God. If we leave that out, I would say Memories of Ice, Midnight Tides, and Bone Hunters are my favorite, my top 3, probably. Yeah,
Mm, yeah, tough. I don't know if I can choose like that. It's really hard.
yeah,
Every time I choose one, I'm like, well, wait a minute, what about that? And that happened. And
yeah. I mean, I tend to think of it more, especially because there are some books where the book overall I didn't fall in love with, but there's a particular part of the book,
mhm,
like
sure.
particular sieges are like the siege of Yucatan is just like
Uh, that, yeah,
crazy.
like if I had to pick a favorite chapter, maybe chapter 7 in Bone Hunters. This is
It's
so good.
famous. It's
Oh, it's
famous
so
as
good.
well. Anytime someone starts Bone Hunters, I'm always like, okay, what chapter are you up to? Okay, you haven't hit chapter 7 yet.
Right.
Make sure you start chapter 7 early. Don't start it late at night
Yeah,
like
right.
I
Yeah.
did. I started at 11:30 at night and I was up until 3 because it's one chapter that's 128 pages long and you can't put it down.
Yeah, it's
It's so
fantastic.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like the most famous chapter in the entire series, I think. Yeah, Yucatan or the Siege of Coral as well, and
Yeah. It's
and the other city with the
right.
sea, whose name I'm forgetting.
Then there's the showdown in Toll the Hounds, and there's
Oh God, the end
oh,
of
and it's
the
just there's
convergence in Toll the Hounds is
oh yeah,
insane.
yeah, it
Um,
really is.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Daniel likes Memories of Ice better than Dead House Gates. Yeah, there isn't really a solid consensus. I've seen so many people say this is my ranking 1 to 10, and very few people have the same ranking, you know.
Yeah.
Um, Memories of Ice does pretty often land in people's top 3 though. I don't know many people who've read the entire series and didn't like Memories of Ice at least enough to put it pretty high up in their ranking. So, yeah. Memories of Ice is your 7th favorite. I'm my mind just doesn't work that way. Like I I could make a list, but next time you ask me it'd be different, I think. When somebody asked me about like I think I'm pretty consistent on like Memories of Ice, Midnight Tides, Bone Hunters are always in my top 5 at least, probably my top 3. But like the whole list, I haven't really gone through and thought about it. Mr. Donaldson has an internal thesaurus. That's true,
Absolutely.
but turns it on and off. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody's sent me to a dictionary more.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I read anything by him. I mean, literally, I read Covenant in high school. So, like, that was about 120 years ago. And I don't think I've ever read anything else by him. So, hey,
Yeah.
Max here. Welcome,
Yeah.
Mac.
Hey, Mac. Yeah. Max great. Uh,
Soon to be finished with Howling Dark. Oh, with your reference list. Yeah, Mac on the Fireside Discord and probably elsewhere. I don't know.
yeah, he
Mac has been publishing reference lists because Rocchio has a lot of references to all sorts of things, whether
that's
it's
awesome.
pop culture like Dune and Star Wars and whatever, but also like really old Roman mythology or
He
Um,
he
you
was
know,
sending me reference lists on the Elden trilogy.
yeah, yeah,
It was
awesome.
awesome,
Like, and
outstanding.
they're like a meter fucking long. Like Mac does nothing else but
So cool.
notice references, which is an invaluable service.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I read through his lists and I'm like, I didn't get 90% of this. I have no idea even what some of the things you're talking about are. But amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Ride Hell's Chasm, the chasm riding took a really long time. Yeah, I also think she meant it to. I don't think it was a mistake or that she necessarily should have changed it. Just to me, it felt very long and kind of repetitive and kind of I know where this is going. There weren't really any surprises. It's like reading a mystery novel, like a not a very good mystery novel where you know who did it, like in the middle of the book, you know.
Mm.
And I think in the second half of the book, the particular tension that she's building up between these two characters is meant to be a big thing. And I was like, I know what's going to come of this. I get it, you know, and yeah. Um, she hates cliffhanger endings, which I can kind of agree with. And she makes sure that every book has a complete story. Okay.
Yeah.
That was actually my least favorite thing about Hyperion. Um, I think Dan Simmons wrote Hyperion and Fall of Hyperion, the first two books in the four books. I think he wrote them as one book, and his publisher made him cut it in half, and he just cut it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like really. There, the last chapter. If you don't have the second book sitting next to you, you're going to throw the first book across the room. Like, I remember I read it when I was in university, and when I was in university, my part-time job was in a bookstore, and I was responsible for the fantasy and science fiction section. And I was on my lunch break. I worked in a mall, and I was in the food court in the mall reading. And I was halfway through my lunch when I finished Hyperion, and I was like, "What?" And I just left my food lying there on the table, ran back to the bookstore, bought Fall of Hyperion, and went back to lunch. Yes, Chadia, Kapustan. That's what I was trying to think of. The
Yeah.
Siege of Kapustan. Kapustan was super epic, crazy shit.
Oh yeah, with the tennis Kyrie and all that. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
so
with Treach's mortal sword.
Yeah.
And oh my god. You know I'm not a Wheel of Time fan. Yes, I am a famous not Wheel of Time fan.
Oh, the last battle. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah,
That
there are
was a
certain
long time ago. I read that, but that was.
there are certain chapters you really just shouldn't touch them unless you've got time. And it's early enough that you're going to be able to sleep relatively normal. So if I read Malazan Realm of the Elderlings and Sun Eater, will there be any time left to sleep? Maybe not. I'm not working at the moment, which is why I have a lot more time than I should. But I've got a freelance thing probably lined up. A friend of mine said, "Hey, you're not working, and I need somebody, but I can't hire somebody. So you want to do a 1 month, 2 month project for me?" So probably.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Mac's reference list is going to be even longer than usual for Howling Dark. Crazy. I really wonder sometimes, like every time I see one of those lists, I'm in awe. But I also wonder, like, what's the experience like reading when you're actually getting all of these things?
Yeah.
Like, I don't get them. I just skim over them, and I'm like, oh, that sounds like it's probably a reference to something I don't know. But
Yeah.
and I just keep going.
I got some when I was reading the Don. I got a lot of because I already knew Philip, so I got quite a few of some of
Yeah.
the ones he said. But then McScarfield comes out with this list, and I'm like, "You got all that?" I got like maybe 4 or 5 of them, and he's like, he's got 20 things.
I know a fair bit about mythology. I'm not an expert, but I know a fair bit
Yeah,
about
yeah,
mythology. So there's a fair bit of stuff that pops up to me in Sun Eater, and certainly the pop cultural level, the stuff in the last 30 years. Like, there's a lot of Dune in there. There's a lot of Gene Wolfe in there. There's a lot of Star Wars in there. There's a bunch of things I get on that level.
yeah. That's cool. I
But like the
I'll have to get there.
historical stuff, I'm like, I don't know anything about the Roman Empire. So I don't know what he's talking about. But
Yeah,
Mac will explain it for you, so you don't
yeah.
need to know it.
I think once I finish one of these big series, I might have to delve into the Sun Eater stuff.
It's
Sounds pretty
good.
good. Sounds
It
pretty cool. Yeah.
is. It is. It's really fun. It's not. I don't think it's nearly as complicated and philosophical as some people have described it as. I was a bit surprised that it was a very easy read, but I like reading Gene Wolfe, which is too hard to read for some people, I guess. Um,
I
so
yeah, I
I
finished Fifth Head of Cerberus
okay.
a
What'd
month
you think?
ago. That was fun. I liked it a lot.
Yeah. Have you
Good.
read any other like
No, I
Latro
got
or
I got Book of the New Sun on the shelf over here. I'm gonna get that this year sometime.
okay?
And, but I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed his writing too. So I'm looking forward to it.
He's a very good writer, no question.
Yeah,
And
it was really good.
he's like, I don't know if Mac has read it, but you should get Max Garfield to do a reference list for Book of the New Sun. Um, it would be longer than any of them because Gene Wolfe was a Catholic and also just had an amazing, like, one of the most interesting thing, or one of the things I find really interesting about Book of the New Sun is that it's kind of fantasy, but it's actually science fiction. And there's a lot of vocabulary in it where you don't know the words. Just like
Mm.
all fantasy series you've ever
Yeah,
read. They make up shit.
yeah.
Gene Wolfe didn't make up anything. All of the words in the book that you don't know are actual words. They were historical words from Rome or from English 200 years ago, or, he
Yeah.
didn't make up any words.
Yeah.
Um, which makes it more confusing in some ways than it would be if you just made up a word. Because sometimes, like, because I've been reading fantasy for a long time, I guess some of these old historically kind of words I do know, but he's putting them on something which isn't what they were originally on.
Oh, okay.
He's resurrecting a word from like 500 years ago and he's putting it on a different thing or a slightly different thing.
Giving it a new connotation.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
there are, it's not a spoiler to say, there are mounts that he calls destriers.
Mhm.
And a destrier was a horse trained for battle that was capable of charging the enemy without freaking out. Like, it was a
Yeah.
particular kind of war horse. And he mentions destriers. So I go, oh, yeah, okay, big, strong war horse kind of horses. And then at some point, he sort of offhand mentions that they have claws. And you're like, wait a sec. Okay, so these are not horses? And then you get more and more detail about them, and you're like, are they actually maybe a little more like birds than they are horses? And there's all sorts of stuff
Yeah.
like that.
I can
Tons of
definitely
stuff
see
like
a different creature being labeled as a destrier if it's used for a wool-like purpose, maybe.
that. Yeah. Okay. People who love the Book of the New Sun should read the Locked Tomb series by Tamsin Muir. Is the Locked Tomb series lesbian necromancers in space? I think it is.
Yeah.
That's how Jordan Reeds is a big fan. And ages ago, 2 years ago, a year ago, she did a series of videos on, I think it was those.
Mm.
And she said her short description was lesbian
Yeah,
necromancers in space.
that's the one. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Daniel mentioned the book that broke the world earlier. That was
Oh, I missed that. Ah,
Fantastic. He's
book
absolutely
appropriate.
right.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm gonna be talking to Philip about that one soon.
Cool.
Yeah, really good.
That's Lawrence, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm hesitant. I mean, those books sound very different than other ones.
From what people tell me, this is quite different than his other stuff.
Yeah.
I haven't read his other stuff, so I don't know. But
I DNF'd Prince of Thorns about a third of the way through. Um, just because the main character is such an unrepentant asshole that I just, first of all, I had a hard time believing in him as a character at all. And second of all, I just kept thinking, do I want to spend time with this guy? No, I actually don't. I'm not enjoying
yeah.
spending time with this guy.
Well, the characters in the library trilogy are quite likable, and fantastic characters. And it's
okay.
Like I said, from what I heard, it's quite different from any of his other
It
stuff.
sounds like it. It sounds like it. Yeah.
And really nice, really well done.
I know Philip's quite a fan.
I'm enjoying the heck out of it.
But
I did enjoy it. I'm waiting for the next one.
Cool. Oh, okay. So apparently lesbian necromancers actually came from Charles Stross. But yeah, Jordan mentioned it in her video, and I chatted with her a bit about it at the time. And like lesbian necromancers in space just makes me curious enough that I'd be interested in at least reading the first one. I'm like, what? It sounds like an interesting book just from that. Syphilitic ninja vampires. Okay. What book has syphilitic ninja vampires in it? Or are you just making shit up now?
Yeah.
Thornall, I think you're just making shit up. I'm a Gene Wolfe fan, right? Okay. I read Fifth Head of Cerberus. I read Latro and the Mist. I read Book of the New Sun multiple times, and I like Gene Wolfe. And when Wizard Knight came out, I was like, oh my God, a new Gene Wolfe book, because I'm old and I was around when it came out. And I immediately picked up Wizard. It's 2 books, Wizard and Knight. And I picked up Wizard and I bounced off that book so hard.
Oh, wow.
I got like 100 pages in and I was like, I am bored and kind of irritated by this book. Yeah. No.
Nice.
I'm not sure what you're referring to, Chad.
Oh, I think
you felt he was
the character's an asshole. Is that?
Oh, right. I thought you were saying
he
was a syphilitic ninja vampire. Yeah, no, that's true. Severian is an asshole. No question. I do not want to be more like Severian. But somehow I found it really interesting because Severian is set up very clearly at the beginning of the book as extremely sheltered, right? He grows up basically in one building his entire life. And when he's late teens, he leaves it and goes out into the world by himself. And I found it really interesting to experience the world through his eyes because it's first person. So, and I also, and this is a conceit that Christopher Rucchio uses in Sun Eater. Severian tells you in the first chapter that he is writing this as the autarch, which is basically the emperor of a lot of the world. Right? He tells you right in the beginning. He says, I am this, and this is how I got there, kind of. And I thought that was really interesting conceit because where he starts is definitely a very different place. And it kept me sort of guessing, like, how is he getting closer to being the autarch? Which was interesting.
Cool.
Very, very interesting. Lawrence's first trilogy is his darkest work. The MC is supposed to be right out of A Clockwork Orange. Ah, okay. That actually, if that first trilogy, I think that first trilogy is Prince of Thorns as the first book. The thing I found, the guy's name's Jörg or Jorg, but it looks like German, so I pronounce it Jörg. Um, the thing that really put me off him was not that he was a sociopath, because Severian is also arguably a sociopath. The thing that I found really hard with Yurik was he was the only sociopath. Like, as the story progresses and he gets some people around him, there actually a number of them are sort of admirable, positively motivated people with a lot more experience than him, because Yurik is very young. And he just refused to even think for a minute about how he was, even though he was presented with like constant examples of people being better people than him. And he was not only a real annoying asshole, but he refused to learn anything. Was my impression anyway. I only got a third or halfway through the book. And after a while, I was just like, no, I don't want to spend any more time with this guy. I'm not enjoying him. I'm not enjoying the story. I don't believe in this character as a character. No. Yeah. But I can totally understand not liking Severian very much. Severian's a hard guy to like. But I think, at least, because Severian is basically a sexist. He's got some very like unpleasant attitudes and I guess opinions, thoughts about women, and how he treats women is not so great. But for me, it seemed pretty clear that Gene Wolfe was doing that very consciously. It didn't make me think that Gene Wolfe was an asshole. It made me think he's doing a very good job of writing an asshole.
Yeah.
It always kind of worries me. Sometimes when you read some stuff like that in some books, you're like, does this guy, this author guy, actually espouse these kinds of things? Yeah, Severian is literally a torturer. Yeah, he is. But even more importantly than him being a torturer, I mean, like, him being a torturer it's in a way, it's the lens through which he sees the world. But I think what's more important with Severian is that he's so innocent. Like, he grew up in, like I said, one building basically, and he doesn't know anything about the world, and he doesn't know anything about how people who are not torturers behave.
That would lead to some odd behavior if you grew up like that.
Yeah, exactly. Herr Professor Doctor is in the house. Good to see you, Philip. I haven't seen you in a while. How are you, man? Speaking of books I need to get to, I read the first one and liked it a lot. Everybody go out and check out the Edam series. If you like cheese, it's all about Edam cheese. It's great. No, it's Edan, for anyone who has been living under a booktube rock for a year. And doesn't know. Yeah, I read the first one and really liked it. Want to get on with the rest.
Yep. They are outstanding. They get better and better. And,
I lost my momentum. I mean, you can't fault Philip for not publishing his books quickly enough, compared to a lot of authors. Like,
as soon as I was done with one, the next one was out. I was like,
but because Philip's a friend, and because I was really excited to read a book a friend wrote, I, like, the day I could get it, I got the first book and I read it in 2-3 days.
Wow.
And then I got out of the rhythm, and by the time the second one was out, which was only a few months later, I was onto other things, and I haven't managed to get back to it yet. See, I told you, Philip is a fan of Edam cheese. Yeah.
Awesome.
Brian feels summoned. Oh, I guess
No.
because we're talking about old dudes.
Oh, dudes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I keep every time Brian talks about anything, I keep thinking, is Brian me if I had become a nightclub owner? Like, we're almost exactly the same age, if I remember correctly. He did a recent video, which was uh, I'm blanking on what it was called. Let me have a look. Um, oh yeah, challenging books that are still in his TBR, and a couple of them I had already read, but the rest of them were all on my TBR, and all things I felt exactly the same about. Um, that's kind of hilarious. Chadia, we like you anyway, or I like you anyway. I think liking Prince of Thorns probably means you're a sociopath, but that's okay.
Oh,
That's okay. And it also means Hair Professor Dr. Chase is also a sociopath. So you're in good company. That is totally fine.
we have there's a lot.
Yeah, but Rogue is Irish, so we know he's a sociopath.
Ah.
That's just an automatic gimme. Yeah, Broken Empire, Red Queen's War. Jalen is sleazy, but he isn't a sociopath like Yerk. Yeah, I don't know. I had such a hard time with Yerk. I really had a hard time with Yerk. I just couldn't do it. But Herr Professor Doctor has talked to me a number of times about Mr. Lawrence, and I've heard also Red Queen's War and the new books, the books.
Yeah.
Sound really interesting.
They are good. The new ones are great.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to think. I always get strangely, I always get, because my mind is mush, I always get The Book That Wouldn't Burn confused with The City of Last Chances by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And it's mostly because I'm a designer and I pay a lot of attention to covers. And they have not very similar covers, but very similar feeling covers. They're very detailed and intricate, and they have some gold foiling, and they don't look like each other.
There you go. Get that one.
Well, yeah, that's the second one, which is blue. Yeah. But the first one was beige, brown-ish, and City of Last Chances also is, and they're both very detailed, intricate, and also very two-dimensional kind of illustrations. You know, very, very flat perspective kind of. Anyway, that's just me. Yeah, Mark Lawrence has serious range, and I also think, from what I've heard, that I would like the library trilogy. Yeah.
Very good. Do you read only one book at a time, and you read through it and then
really
hit the next one? Okay. Because I'm scatterbrained. I do like 4 or 5 at a time, and I read 10 pages here, 20 pages over there.
I know. A lot of people have said that. A lot of people do that.
Yeah.
It doesn't work with my brain. Like, I lose track of what's going on in which book if I have multiple books going at the same time. I can do that under certain conditions. Like, I can have an audiobook and a paper book going at the same time. And somehow those are separate enough for me that I keep them
compartmentalized enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
and
I always
I'm reading this right now. So sci fantasy, or actually fantasy, I would call it. And I'm reading a book about like depression right now, like a neuroscience book about causes of depression and how to work with it. Very, very different books, and I can keep those straight.
Sure,
you know, but like stories that, especially that kind of fall into the same category, they start overlapping and blurring together for me.
Yeah,
if I'm
I've
reading
always
more
been
than
good
one.
at keeping things separate.
Right.
And so I've always kept, like, I keep some books at work have a break there and read that, and then I keep some at home and different
Okay.
places, and it's
Yeah. That may also be why audiobooks and paper books work very well, same
sure,
time but separate from me.
I can see that. Yeah.
Well, especially because I never listen to audiobooks at home. Like
Ah,
audiobooks to me are only a thing I put on in the headphones when I'm walking around, when I'm on the way somewhere, when I'm doing the shopping, when I'm out of my flat. And I fall asleep instantly if I sit down and listen to a book. Yeah. I just can't do it. Um,
nice.
yeah. People seem to think I will love Library Trilogy. Okay. Good to know. Everybody, like I was saying this on the fireside recently, I think the book ever that most people have said would definitely be totally my thing is Boy's Life by Robert McCammon,
Oh, really?
and I just bought it
Oh,
because people keep repeating that at me. So I thought I have to eventually get it. Joanna,
it is, Joanne.
hello, good to see you. Um, Shep started the same time as Philip and I, and finally finished Book of the New Sun. What did you think? I'm still thinking about the fifth book sometime soon, Earth and New Sun, um, which theoretically, according to the anecdotes, uh, Gene Wolfe's publisher or editor actually said to him, the discussion about your books is that most people don't understand exactly what happened. Could you write a book that makes it a bit more clear? And I'm not sure he did. I don't think Earth and New Sun answers all the questions
Be careful what you ask for.
by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah, exactly. Be careful what you ask for. And I mean, then he went on to write a couple, I think, two more trilogies, which are kind of connected. Hey, Dan's
Dan,
in the
hey.
house. Everybody's arriving late because I'm tired and we'll probably end this pretty soon. Colton is one of the people who multiple times had told me I have to read Boy's Life, but that's not a criticism. That is more gratitude, because it does sound like exactly my kind of thing, and I think I will love it. You wanted a Baldander's POV. Yeah. Baldander's, without getting into too much spoilery, Baldander's is a giant. He's just like this really huge dude that you meet pretty early in the book. And there's a lot to Baldander's. There's a lot more to Baldander's than meets the eye. Put it that way. People say read Earth and New Sun to try to understand Book of the New Sun and end up more confused. Yeah, exactly. Gene Wolfe does not make anything easy for you. like Latro and the Mist, which I also really enjoyed, but I mean I read it like 30 years ago, I think. Is about an ancient Greek, pretty sure it's ancient Greece. Yeah, I think ancient Greek soldier. And I think he has a head injury, like already when the book starts, and he forgets everything every day.
Oh,
So he goes
jeez.
to sleep and he wakes up and doesn't remember anything. And surprise, surprise, and it's told first person by that guy. So that makes for a confusing narrative. And it also makes for a really good movie. When I saw Memento, which is an excellent movie, but as soon
Yeah.
as I saw Memento and started watching it for like 5 minutes, I was like, this is Latro and the Mist in modern Los Angeles. What's going
Oh,
on?
okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that movie. That's great.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Roman mercenary fighting in Greece. Okay. I knew it was Greek something. But yeah. Joanna was not over the moon about Boy's Life. And really thinks I'd love it. Yeah. Because I mean, it was something I was thinking about when I was reading Something Wicked This Way Comes, which is very much a book about boyhood,
Mm.
an adventure that a boy and his best friend have, mostly with a little bit of one of their dads mixed in. Um, and I was really curious. I thought, is a girl going to get as much out of this? Is there something about being a boy that is unique, or unique enough that most boys could, or most men could relate to the boyhood, and most women maybe couldn't because they were girls and mostly doing other things. But okay. So it was the Battle of Thermopylae. Like I said, it's been so long since I read Latro. It's been 30 years, I think. So yeah. Rogue also wasn't that impressed by Boy's Life. Okay. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see. Yeah, Dr. Telos and Baldanders are pretty amazing characters in Book of the New Sun. Very, very interesting characters. Where there's kind of a not really a big twist exactly, but like there's a lot of evolution of these two characters. They're companions, sort of always together, and things develop over the series with them where you end up with a very, very different picture of them than you had to start with. I don't know about John Crowley, Shep, but Canticle is awesome. Canticle for Leibovitz is an amazing book. It's really,
Who's
really
that
good. Somebody in the chat tell me,
Stumper.
because I've blanked on Canticle. Who wrote Canticle? It's a great idea, which is extremely well executed. It's a group of monks who are trying to preserve all human knowledge, or as much human knowledge as possible, after the apocalypse. And if I remember correctly, again, it's been a long time since I read it. It's got three time jumps, so 4 sections.
Walter Miller Jr.
Walter Miller Jr. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
A guy who I otherwise don't know for anything, but I think it's 3 time jumps. So you start off just before the apocalypse, I think, and then it jumps 100 years, and it's after the apocalypse, and it jumps again, that kind of thing. It's been a long time since I read it, so I may be a little off on that, but I remember it being really, really good.
Cool.
Left-Handed Darkness is also a good option. I've heard. I have not read it, but I've also got it on my shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Walter Miller Jr. wrote that and then disappeared. Yeah. So Daniel loved Left-Handed Darkness. I expect to love Left-Handed Darkness. I like Le Guin.
Me too. I like her writing. Yeah.
Yeah. I like Le Guin's writing, although I've never read any science fiction by her. Only Earthsea.
Yeah, I've just read Earthsea, but I read a couple of short stories, but I like what I've seen a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, and it sounds like I bought Left-Hand of Darkness and The Dispossessed together because I think Joanna was talking about them. And it seemed to be popping up a number of places, and I was like, "Oh, cool! Yeah, Le Guin science fiction. I'll get those. They're on my shelf, and I have not read them yet."
Yeah, I think I'm reading The Dispossessed sometime this year. Yep.
I don't have a plan like that. I can't make long-term reading plans.
Well, our friend Varsha makes me read them, so I got to do it.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I'm on book 6 of Sun Eater, and there's no more Sun Eater after that. And I've really been up in the air about what to read next. Maybe Boy's Life, but I was also thinking of just going back to Discworld and reading Men at Arms. I read God's Gods last year, and really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
and want to read Men at Arms.
Always got Reba's Guilds waiting for you.
It's a lot easier to say I'll read something fun and light and short.
Yeah.
Then I will read this book I could kill someone with. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, it's like I said earlier. I don't know if you were already here. Like pretty much every week in the pub, at some point, we always talk about Malazan. It always comes up at some point. And every time I talk about Malazan with anybody, I'm always like,
Oh yeah. You
kind of,
miss it.
I
Yeah.
kind of miss it. It's been a long time since I was in that world. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Always say you're going to read something this year when I really want to read it, but have no idea when I'm going to. Yeah, yeah. Maybe I'm just a little more honest than the good Herr Professor Doctor.
Yeah.
I just say yes, I want to read it. I have no idea when I'm going to read it. Shutter Island Rogue. Shutter Island, if I remember
Oh, yeah.
correctly, was made into a movie.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Which was
Wasn't that
pretty popular, but I haven't read.
was that
And
DiCaprio?
I think so.
Isn't it? I think it was. I'm not sure.
And Dennis Lehane, isn't Dennis Lehane one of the guys that Josh is really into? If I'm keeping my author names straight.
I think so. Yeah. That sounds right. Yeah.
Something outside science fiction fantasy. Fair enough. I also have the Vanished Birds on my list, and I have no doubts that I will love it after
Yeah, I need to read that too.
the way I reacted to the spear cuts through Evie. I've got that on my list. And so on. Kale, we were talking about this earlier. I have not. I have read Knight of Knives, which is Ian C. Esselmont, and I have read the Bokelane and Corbel Broach novellas. I think all of them, which are Stephen Erickson. But I'm doing the ultimate reading order, which is where you put all of the books in story chronological order. So I think Knight of Knives comes after House of Chains or somewhere around there, because it's an appropriate time to have that as a flashback. It's not actually in chronological order.
Yeah, it's not yeah, it's just the appropriate time, right?
Yeah, it's just like after you know who these two characters are, kind of. It doesn't spoil anything, and then you read. Can you see my camera moving a little bit?
Yeah, I saw that.
That's because Fitz is rubbing her face on my monitor. Come here, Fitz. Yeah. So the side books, I got this from Philip. Philip corrected me once, or not corrected me, but suggested that we not call them side books because it makes it sound like Esselmont's writing is less important or good than Erickson's. But the Esselmont books slot into the Book of the Fallen in between other books and come after. I think one or two of them come after.
Yeah. I know Orb Scepter Throne is almost a sequel of Toll the Hounds. It's right after Toll the Hounds. It's very cool.
And I think it's Reaper's Gale and then Return of the Crimson Guard.
I don't know. That's
if I remember that
debatable. You can
reading order.
Read Return. I read Return after Bone Hunters, but you can read it past after Reaper's Gale. Either it really wouldn't matter where you slot that in there. Either have to read the book.
So the Malazan Wiki has a whole page with multiple different suggested reading orders.
Yeah.
And the one I'm doing is the ultimate reading order, which has been suggested from the Malazan forum. So it was Dead House Gates, and then 3 of the Bokelane Corbel Broach novellas, and then it was House of Chains, and another Bokelane Corbel Broach, Midnight Tides, then Knight of Knives, Reaper's Gale, another Bokelane Corbel Broach, and then Return of the Crimson Guard, Toll the Hounds, and then Stone Wielder, and Goats of Glory, which is a short story. Which is a short story that
You can read that anytime.
I don't know why anyone would think that Goats of Glory belongs anywhere particular in the chronology.
Yeah.
But I guess the characters at the beginning, they're coming from a war, which
Yeah, they're on. Yeah, I guess so.
maybe happened in Stonewielder or something. I'm not sure. And then it's Dust of Dreams, Orb Scepter Throne, Cripple God, Blood and Bone, Assail, Forge of Darkness, Forge of Light, Walk in Shadow. It doesn't include any of the Casa trilogy, because I think
Yeah,
that
and the
discussion was had before the Casa trilogy
and the
existed.
passive ascendancy are kind of obvious where you know you can read those
Yeah,
anytime.
exactly.
But
Yeah, and I was actually thinking Passo Ascendancy. I'm just going to read those after I finish
yeah, you could do
Book of
that.
the Fallen and read them as a thing together.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
not.
they are.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's good, and they're all
Um,
great, Kale. If you haven't read them yet, they're all really great. So
yeah, yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. It's actually one of the things I really, because I haven't read them. I read the Malazan Book of the Fallen and nothing else, and now I'm rereading it and then sticking in the other things where they belong. Yes, Dresden will do that to you. Have you read Dresden, Jared?
I have not. No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Dresden's weird. I mean, it's light, it's funny. The books are not that long. The early books, especially, are not that long. When I started it, I was like, it's all right. And then I got up to like book, I don't know, 4. And like I said, they're not that long. It's not like saying, book 4 of Malazan. And there was a point where I was like, oh damn, I'm hooked now. And I just downloaded a whole bunch of them on my Kindle, and I was reading them at lunch every day at work and just raced through them. I need to get back to them. I think there are 3 or 4 new ones since I read any Dresden. So yeah. Dresden is really, it's not like high literature or anything, but it's a lot of fun and a very involving story at some point. Spear Cuts Through Eevee is more innovative and well written, but I enjoyed Vanish. Yeah. It's probably actually better to call it Eevee Cuts Through Water, so that we're not doing violence to our friend and the moderator of our Discord. Yeah. Also read Return After Bone Hunters, but yeah, I trust the Malazan. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Joanna. I did say it first. It just occurred to me that saying the Spear Cuts Through Eevee is probably not that nice to Eevee. Yeah, with the reading order, I kind of trust the hardcore. Like I'm a Malazan fan, but I'm not like a super hardcore Malazan nerd. I would say I trust the super hardcore Malazan nerds who had a big discussion about this in the forums, and they came to a consensus where they were like, "This makes sense." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, it's good enough for me." Publishing order doesn't make sense to me, because everything was published in the Malazan Book of the Fallen before anything else was published, if I remember correctly, and then that throws all the books out in a really non-chronological chronological order. They also have a list on the wiki. Read both authors concurrently in order of publication, and you get all the way to Midnight Tides before you read Night of Knives.
Yeah.
Oh no, and then they are sort of in the same order. Bone Hunters, Reaper's Gale, Return of the Crimson Guard, Toll the Hound, Dust of Dreams, Crackpot Trail, Stone Wielder, Cripple God, Orb Scepter Throne. Yeah. So it's only slightly different in the ultimate reading order. It did result in some tattoos. Did you get some tattoos, Joanna? I mean, I know Eevee did. Eevee cuts through TBRs. Yeah, exactly. Eevee totally cut through my TBR twice. She and Dan got me to read it again within 6 months of reading it the first time, which I don't know that I've ever known, ever done before. You're not super hardcore until you get a Malazan tattoo. Yeah, that's true. What would you get as a Malazan tattoo, though?
Hmm. Yeah, what would you get?
Dragnapur with big black chains wrapping around. Dragnapur down my arm and then big black chains. People would think I was an edgelord. Speaking of edgelord,
Uh,
um, we were actually talking about that a little earlier, Kale. I haven't read any of Erickson's non-Malazan books. I think you said you
Re-
have, Jared?
Rejoice, yeah, Rejoice,
Rejoice.
A Knife to the
Rejoice
Heart.
and After the Heart. Yeah.
It's fantastic. Um, sci-fi, and it's his thought experiment, Erickson's thought experiment, sci-fi thought experiment, and it's outstanding. I had a big discussion with AP with it on my channel, and
I remember
we
seeing
had
that
a
pop up,
blast.
but I
We had a
didn't
blast. Yeah, yeah.
get facial tattoos like Casa. Yeah, great idea, Doctor. Herr Professor Doctor. Get some shattered glass tattooed over your entire face, marking you as a slave.
Oh,
Excellent.
jeez.
Yes. That would be very cool. A full back tattoo of the original Gardens of the Moon mass market paperback. I don't know what you mean by original. The only cover for Gardens that I know is actually one I hate. The
What
one
you
with
mean the romance novel cover?
the tower at night with the moon behind it.
No, there's another one with a guy on horseback
Oh yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
a, and a woman next to him, and they look like they're on a romance novel. That's what it looks like to me.
Totally, totally. It
And,
looks
and I,
like romanticy. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, exactly.
but so I'm wondering which one he's referring to there.
He's probably talking about that one sarcastically. I hate the one with the tower, which is the one I have, and I think the most common one around now.
Mhm.
It's like they were looking through a file of old fantasy clip art. I have read Gardens of the Moon twice, and I don't even know what it's meant to be depicting. Like there isn't a tower that's important anywhere in the
Yeah,
story.
I'm not sure.
There is a
That's the
moon,
one I got too. Yeah, but
right? There's a moon
the
behind the
moon. Yep,
tower,
the moon behind the tower. Yep.
and it's in the title, the moon. So whatever. But like, what is that meant to be? It's a horrible cover. I hate it. Hate it. That would be actually what I would
Bridge
probably
Beneath
get.
Logo. Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be
first in, last out.
the bridge with the flames. Yeah, that's
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, on one shoulder, and on the other shoulder, the Bone Hunters
Yeah, that'd be cool.
logo. Yeah. Yes, a Dragnapur tattoo is super edgelordy. It's the edgelordiest.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, Kale is, if I remember correctly, in Melbourne. So it's early there, but it's still early there. I mean, like it's 6:45 in the morning. Kale, are you okay? Why are you Sunday pubbing? It's 7 in the morning on a Monday. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, Philip. I was actually in a bar. This was I'm always really happy because I live in a country that has awesome beer gardens where you can sit outside in nice weather and drink a beer. And Friday, was it Friday? Yeah, it was Friday. Was the first beer garden visit for me this year. Me and one of my best friends went out to a really nice beer garden, and we ended up talking to this lady who was just sitting next to us by herself. And then eventually her boyfriend came over, and he worked at the bar, and super nice people. And she had a number of tattoos. That's how the conversation started. And she asked me, she's like, "Oh, you said you're a designer. Like you probably have some really interesting tattoos." And I'm like, "No, I'm a designer. So I have a million ideas for tattoos, but I could never decide on one. I just like, because you can't change it, you know?"
Yeah.
It's too late. Uh, oh, that's interesting. I don't remember that. The Malazan, the Gardens cover.
Oh, really?
The
Yeah.
woman is and isn't there, depending on like they zoom in more on just the
On
guy.
the guy, yeah. Huh.
It's like, isn't it a guy on a horse and he's reaching over his shoulder? He has a sword on his back or something.
Something like that, yeah.
It's so even the posing of the subjects looks really weird and stiff and unnatural. I hate that one. Mullet Man cover.
Uh,
Excellent. Beer
nice.
gardens are awesome.
That does sound awesome, yeah.
Yeah, we have a really big one that we go to pretty often. It used to be like this guy that I was meeting, very good friend of mine, Turkish guy, Thailand. He and I used to work together, and this beer garden is around the corner from work, and he still works there, and I moved on. And it's a huge outdoor area with an outdoor bar, an indoor bar, some food as well. You can pick up some
Yeah,
food. It feels almost like going out and having a picnic or something.
yeah.
It's
I mean, we
just
got
like
places like
really,
that.
really nice.
Yeah, we have places like that in New England, but just the idea of calling them gardens is unique probably to Germany.
Biergarten. Yeah. Brian wants his other arm tattooed. What's on your first arm? You're always wearing shirts, thank the Lord, in your videos. So I don't know what's on your tattoo. It's meant to be Paran and Lorne.
Yeah.
Paran has a mullet. Good to know. Huh.
I didn't realize he was super buff.
No, I thought he was kind of a small dude. When Daniel was 15, he thought it would be a great idea to get his hand and forearm tattooed with Spider-Man's glove webbing pattern. Yeah.
Thwip.
Yeah, it's good. It's good you can't get drunk and get a tattoo when you're 15.
Wow.
The beer gardens of the moon. I want that book. I want that book, The Beer Gardens of the Moon. That's perfect. Thank you, Ron. You made my evening. No, actually, I think at some point you were wearing a short sleeve, and I did see that. All black and gray. Yeah. No, I kind of remember that. Does it work though? That's the question. Like, could someone else stare into it and be transported?
Nice.
That would be really good.
That'd be awesome.
So everybody, it's going well, but it's late here. It's 11:15, and I'm tired. I also have no tattoos, Kel. I've had numerous ideas throughout my life, and always thought, am I still going to want that in 6 months?
Yeah, that's my same problem. Same problem. I'm like, 6 years now? Am I going to be like, what am I doing? But
yeah, and I mean, with me, it's more like I would design something myself because I'm a designer. And then I would be looking at it and I would constantly be thinking, yeah, but if I just moved that up a little and,
what was I thinking? I should have
and
put it this way.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do that with tattoos that easily. So yeah, exactly. I am going to go to bed, Matt. It has been, as always, as every week, a pleasure. Thank you for joining me, Jared.
Yeah, you're welcome. You looked a little lonely, so I was like, all right.
Yeah,
the
on-screen, the last two, the on-screen, the on-screen friends have been sadly lacking, or at least lesser than it used to be. It used to be always pretty much every time I started it, there were already one or two people waiting to join.
Well, I finally had some time too, so that was nice. Nice.
Yeah, cool. No, it's good to see you. I'm glad you joined in your DM shirt.
Yeah.
Raph, who is usually here, had the best excuse in the world.
Oh yeah, I heard that.
He wrote on the fireside that because heavy metal, he again wouldn't be here. I'm like, you got to put heavy metal first, man.
Meddling it. I like it.
Yeah, he's meddling. Yeah, exactly. Raf went to a concert, but I think it sounds much better if you said Raf couldn't be here because heavy metal. Um, yeah.
Yep.
Drew to other people's tattoos. Cool. That's very nice. Anyway, thanks for joining. Next week will be as usual. We have a special, what is that? In 2 weeks, we have a special not pub coming up. But at the same time, as usual, my fireside co-hosts and I and our mod, which is Joanna, Josh, Evie is our mod, and me. We have a little TBR project
Oh,
that
nice.
we will do a live stream in 2 weeks for, and then another live stream about a month or 6 weeks after that. We will announce that all over the place. You won't be missing it. And if you just turn up as you always do for the Sunday pub, you'll see it in 2 weeks, whether you want to or not. Have a lovely week, everyone.
Yep.
Look forward to seeing you next week.